spoken to President Trump today about the indictments and the guilty plea?
Well, I spoke to the president, but I'm obviously not going to discuss what my discussions with the presidents were. What I will tell you is that in reviewing the indictment first as it relates to the situation for Paul Manafort and Richard Gates, that when you read the indictment, and you've been covering this this morning and this afternoon, this is not involving the campaign or campaign activity. So in looking at this, looks like it was, activity, again, these are allegations going back to as far back as 2006, so almost a decade ago, or a little over a decade ago. So as it relates to the campaign or campaign activity, there's nothing in the Manafort indictment.
I just want to point out, if you read the indictment involving Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, it does say they were looking into activity that they had during the campaign when he was the campaign chairman, and Rick Gates worked for him. He was a deputy to the campaign chairman, so they're looking at that as well.
Well, they're looking, but the allegations in the indictment, though, are focused on their business activities, not campaign activities, not campaign events. So again, yes, there was an overlap in, as far as the time frame goes. They were obviously still doing their business that they had at that time and their representations. But if you look at the actual charges that have been leveled, I mean, this is an indictment now. The charges that have been leveled will focus in on FARA registrations, tax evasion, money laundering. I mean, these are serious charges. I mean, no question. But they're not charges that involve the campaign. Yeah.
But one of the charges potentially could involve the campaign, and that's perjury, lying while he was involved in the campaign.
Well, look, perjury, the 1001 charges is called 18 U.S.C. 1001, which is what George Papadopoulos ended up pleading guilty to. Again, doesn't mean it was a campaign activity. It means you were asked something and you gave the agent a false statement. You made that's what it is. It's a false statement charge. So based on the indictment and the information that's contained in the indictment, it doesn't mean that it was campaign activity or campaign involvement. It was just that there was an incorrect statement. It doesn't mean there was any illegality. It's often the case, and you know this, that it's not the underlying activity, it's the misstatement to the agent or the officer here. Yep.
Let's talk about George Papadopoulos, who's now pled guilty. He was arrested over the summer. How worried are you that his involvement in the campaign, working with national security advisors to the then candidate Donald Trump, and also establishing these contacts with Russians who had information, supposedly dirt, on Hillary Clinton, that could set the stage for what the special counsel Robert Mueller is looking into, possible collusion?
I'm not concerned about it because if you look at what, again, George Papadopoulos' plea is, what the actual plea that he entered into was, again, a false statement about a timing as to when he talked to somebody about Russian activities. It wasn't, by the way, these weren't activities that were illegal. It wasn't the conversation that they had. There's nothing in there that says that conversation was illegal or inappropriate or whatever it might have been. You look at what he said to the agent, and evidently, and again, obviously I don't represent Mr. Papadopoulos, but it's statements that he made to the agents that they're saying the allegation in the plea, and he's now pled guilty to.
As far as you know, the contacts he had while he was a national security advisor to the candidate, Donald Trump, the contacts he had with these Russians were authorized by the campaign.
Now, let me say this. First of all, George Papadopoulos served on a committee. A lot of, as you know, campaigns have committees with various people on it. He was not a senior advisor to the Trump campaign. He was on a committee.
But his contacts were authorized by senior advisors, according to the affidavit.
Yeah, according to the affidavit. So here's what that is, in and of itself, a conversation that someone would have regarding a foreign government, whether it was Great Britain, Russia, or anybody else. Those are not illegal activities. I mean, that's not an inappropriate activity. I mean, it's again, where did he get in trouble? Was it the call that he made to the professor? No, that was the Russian professor. No, that wasn't what got him in trouble. That's not where the crime was. The crime was lying about the timing of it to the agent. So again, you know, Wolf, I don't represent him, and so I don't want to give any kind of statement as to his culpability or knowledge. I'm just telling you from our perspective, from as the president's private lawyer. Yeah, go ahead.
As far as you know, if a campaign advisor to the candidate, campaign advisor is trying to get, quote, dirt on Hillary Clinton from Russians, Is there anything wrong with that?
Well, look, it's not illegal to get opposition research. My goodness.
I'm talking about from Russians, from foreign adversaries of the United States.
Look, well, I don't know if it was from Russians or Russian adversaries or somebody that was affiliated with Russia, but you spent the entire last week, which in the news, was the whole Fusion GPS matter and the dossier and the DNC involvement there. Is that illegal activity? I mean, there's now committees looking at it, but here's what I know. I'm going to only talk about what I know, and what I know is all I know about the George Papadopoulos matter, Wolf, and yeah, I came on here at your request to do this quickly. The only thing I know about George Papadopoulos, frankly, is what's in the actual indictment. I don't know George Papadopoulos. I've not spoken with his lawyers, so I don't know the nature and scope of his full engagement with his lawyers, what they were dealing with. I know what he's pled guilty to, so I really got to stick to the document there because I don't know the information on the other.
The indictments, at least the indictments, suggest lots of illegal activity on the part of Paul Manafort and Rick Gates, and a guilty plea now as far as George Papadopoulos is concerned. So here's the bottom line for you. If he's fully cooperating, Papadopoulos now, with the FBI, with the special counsel, Robert Mueller, how worried should other Trump campaign officials be that they potentially could be implicated? Maybe just for perjury, but maybe for other illegal activity.
Well, the way to avoid perjury is when you're dealing with a federal agent in an investigation is to tell the truth. So, I mean, as I said before, it's often, unfortunately, it's not the underlying activity. It's the misstatement to the federal agent. So I would tell anybody, as any lawyer would, when you're going in and dealing with this, you know, tell the truth. And if you don't know something, you don't know it. But if you're going to testify before a federal agent, make sure what you're saying is truthful.
But clearly, in this particular case, George Papadopoulos, he didn't testify, he didn't tell the truth, and some will argue he didn't do it because he was trying to protect the Trump campaign, and presumably there are others involved who maybe were doing similar activity who were trying to protect the Trump campaign as well, and as a result, they weren't fully honest with federal investigators. You must be concerned about that.
I would tell anybody that's going to go speak to a federal investigator, as any lawyer would, to tell the truth, or to exercise your privilege if you feel like you can't testify against your own interests. You have a Fifth Amendment privilege. People have those. But I would tell people, tell the truth. And where this particular indictment with George Papadopoulos came into being, obviously, was the FBI has, and now they've got a guilty plea, so it's not just an allegation anymore, is that he did not tell the truth when he was being interviewed by the agents of the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And that's a violation of 18 U.S.C. 1001, and that's what happened there.
So are you concerned that he's fully cooperating now, and over the course of these past few months, he may have implicated others?
No, I'm not concerned. Because I'm completely convinced, as I was since the outset, that not only is there no Russian collusion, there's no obstruction. I'm not concerned about it. We're doing our job and have a good relationship with the special counsel's office as far as information goes. I'm not concerned about this at all, and no one else is either.
Is there any chance, Jay, is there any chance at all that the president will try to fire Robert Mueller?
No, I saw a couple of people talking about this morning, and the answer to that is no. The president is not interfering with the special counsel Mueller's position. He's not firing the special counsel. He said that before. The fact that I don't think that anybody is surprised that an indictment came down today or that there was this plea, because we expected this indictment. I mean, I think I've been on your broadcast talking about this a couple months back. I mean, we've expected this for months after they had the raid on Paul Manafort's house. You thought there was going to be something. But what the something is, though, is activities going back, it looks like, as much as a decade ago. So this was obviously, and some are telling me, and I don't have verification of any of this, Wolf, what I'm going to say right now, there are statements out there, I'm hearing from other people, that there may have been an Eastern District of Virginia investigation going on even before Mueller was appointed, and this may have been merged with it. We've heard that from some people. I think you all have talked about that too. So it may have been that they put it all together when the special counsel was appointed. But no, I'm not concerned about where this goes. Obviously, I think one thing this does establish is special counsel's moving expeditiously, and that's, I think, good for the country and good for the president.
Is there any chance the president will start pardoning any of those implicated right now, like Paul Manafort or Rick Gates?
I've had no conversation with the president on pardoning anybody involved with this at all.
Would that be smart if he were to do so?
No, I mean, look, the pardon power it constitutionally vests with the President of the United States. But I'm not going to speculate on whether it would be smart or not. I haven't had any conversation with the President, no indication at all that that's where this would go.
But are you concerned if he were to pardon some of these individuals who may be implicated, may be charged, it could be seen as obstruction of justice by the special counsel?
Well, look, here's the fact of the matter is there's been no conversations with the President about these indictments came down this morning. I've had no conversations, nor would I discuss it with you if I did, but I haven't had a conversation with the President about pardons or pardoning individuals, so I really do not want to speculate on what a pardon that doesn't exist may or may not do, because it's not something that's on the table. I mean, it was not
I asked the question because of Sheriff Arpaio out in Arizona was pardoned by the President.
Well, the President has I mean, look, the President has the authority to pardon, and he did pardon Sheriff Arpaio. He had the authority constitutionally to do that. Had nothing to do with this matter at all, as you know. So, of course, presidents have the authority to pardon. Presidents pardon. But there's no indication here. I've not had any conversations. There's been no conversations that I'm aware of with anyone, including the President, regarding pardons here. This has happened this morning. No conversations on that.
Do you know if the special counsel has asked for the President's finances, his tax returns, other information along those lines?
I have no basis to believe that is the case.
Do you still believe the President is not being investigated?
There is not what we said is we've been clear. There is not a formal investigation of the President of the United States. We have been cooperating if there's questions that come from the special counsel's office. We've been in full cooperation mode. The inside counsel, White House special counsel on this, Ty Cobb, has been very, very clear on the transparent nature of the document production that's gone on here, and that continues to be handled in a very professional manner.
There was one thing that jumped out, a lot of things that jumped out at me at the affidavit involving the guilty plea from George Papadopoulos, that there was a court order. They went through his email, his Facebook. He tried to delete his Facebook page, which had potentially incriminating information. I assume similar activity is going on with other individuals. What's your reaction to that?
I would say, look, I'm not going to speculate or give free legal advice to others what they should do or should not do. They should be in consultation with their lawyers. I'm not going to speculate that. I'm not going to render legal advice, and I appreciate it, you asking me, but I'm not going to give people legal advice. I tell them don't do anything that would violate the law. If I was their lawyer, that's what I tell them. Do nothing that would violate the law.
You're the President's lawyer. Has he been asked to testify or answer questions from the special counsel?
He has not.
If he is asked, will he cooperate?
The President said he would.
And you think that would be a good idea for him to do so?
Well, whether it be a good
as his attorney.
When you say a good idea. Well, I mean, I would look in the normal course of concluding this. If in fact the President was asked a series of questions by the special counsel, we have no indication of that. The President said he will be. He said this months and months ago that he would cooperate. So I'm not concerned about that.
Because I know the President said that, I'm asking you as his attorney, would you advise him to do so?
I am not going to share with you, Wolf, advice I would give or not give my client on a matter that I haven't discussed with the client. So I'll just leave it at that.
All right, Jay Sekulow, it was kind of you to join us on this very important day, I dare say, historic day in this entire investigation. Jay Sekulow is the President's attorney. Thanks so much for joining us.